Have you ever worked with somebody who has a really good attitude and they're such an asset to you? They could do so many things, but there's this one flaw. They're always too busy for you. They're never available. Or perhaps you're in relationships with those kinds of people. In this video, I want to introduce to you the third part of this 4A relational framework for life and business: availability. Stay tuned. I've been the unavailable person. I've been the unavailable friend, daughter, sister, you name it. I've been unavailable to others. But it took me a long time to realize what that did to people in my life. Because I was just always busy with something, and something else always took priority or preeminence. So I'm not talking from a place of judgment, I'm talking from a place of understanding, and I'm talking based on experience with making the mistake. It sucks to the people you're in relationships with when you're too busy for them. It does, it messes them up. Because especially when you're in relationships with others who would do anything for you, who would help you, they really struggle with it. To be available means to be at someone else's disposal. So you're there. If they call, you're there. If they text, you're there. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have a life and your life now revolves around people. That's what you say, right? And that's the thought that comes to your head. It's not about that. But it's that you give your time, your energy, and your mental bandwidth to commit to delivering what that person needs effectively. Let me tell you a little story. If you've ever read that parable in Matthew 22, where Jesus spoke about a king, and this king had prepared this nice banquet. And he told his servants, he said, no, go out and invite a couple of people. Now, these people were happy to get the invitation, but do you know what? They said, I have business to do, I have all these other things to do, and they never took the invitation. So the king sent servants to other people, and he kept doing that until eventually people just kept declining again and again and again. And then he says, you know what? Just go to the highways and byways and just invite anybody. And do you know who came? Those people. Those people who were strangers to the king showed up for his banquet. Have you ever felt like that? That strangers are kinder to you. Strangers are more helpful to you than the people who you do life with, than the people who you started business with. It could happen to any of us. And as the Bible said, many are invited, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. And the question is, are you looking at unavailable people to meet needs in your life and business that they are simply too busy to meet? Now, being busy isn't necessarily a bad thing all the time. It happens to all of us. All of us have something that we're preoccupied with, and all of us have our lives. But there are those times you just need to pause and peek over in someone else's garden and make sure that it's actually growing. Water it with a little time, with a little energy, with a little prayer. Zig Ziglar said this, that if you help enough people get what they want, then eventually you get what you want. And let me tell you, it's sometimes so sacrificial to be available to others in relationships. It's so sacrificial to be available to your business partner. It's so sacrificial to be an available employee to your boss because it's costing you. It's costing you. But think about this, right? Whatever a man sows, he also reaps. So if you are always too busy for people, do you know what will happen to you? People will be too busy for you. In your greatest need, in your hour of need, people are going to be too busy for you. The bare minimum will always be too much for someone who's unavailable. The bare minimum, the least you could ask for from them will always be too much when they're unavailable. Now, let me tell you something. Everyone has their life to live. And one thing I've learned to do is become the person who respects people's choices. I've learned to do that. I've learned to not adjust the need, but probably adjust who I ask to deliver on it. I've learned to be a more understanding person with what people could do and what they cannot do. The more you negotiate your need is the more your business and your life will suffer. I'm telling you. A need is not a want. A want is something you can live without. It could change today or tomorrow, but needs tend to stay the same. Like as a basic human being, what do we need? We need warmth, we need shelter, we need clothes, we need water, we need food. Those things don't change. It doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter what day or what season we're in. Those things are going to remain. And there are things, basic human needs. And if you want, you could go and research some of the basic emotional and psychological needs of a human being. They will not change. And my question to you is this: are you willing to avail yourself to be the person who may be an asset, to the person who may be an asset with the right attitude, become what you need them to be? Because sometimes you're really knocking another person's lack of availability, but to mold them into the person, into the employee that you want them to be, into the accountant that you want them to be, into the child that you want them to be, is to make yourself available to make a divine deposit in that person. Because people may have raw materials like a good character, but still require your leadership. And good character with mediocre skills will always put a demand on your leadership. It will always put a demand on your leadership. So if you are not okay with making yourself available, then you may lose an asset with a right attitude. And that's the point I'm making to you. Because you have the raw materials, but you don't want to meet your own need through your own availability. I repeat, you have the raw materials, but you refuse to meet your need through your own availability. It takes two hands to clap. You don't clap with one hand, which means you could knock other people for not being available, but you need to make sure that you avail yourself. Because a relationship doesn't involve one person, right? It involves two people, two or more people, which means it's going to take some mutual agreement and sacrifice on your part and the other person's. Dr. Mike Murdoch is one of my wisdom mentors, and he taught me this: the person with the greatest need makes the greatest accommodation and adjustment. Are you adjusting? Are you accommodating to get what you need? Because if you say, no, I need what I need and I will not make any adjustment. Now, when I say negotiate your need, I'm talking about talking yourself out of it, right? But the accommodation and adjustment means that you ask yourself, what am I willing to do or not do to make sure this need is met? You can't get the best from people not giving the best to them. You need to sow the seed of your own availability if you want others to make themselves available to you. Adjust the expectation, not the need. And sometimes you have to adjust the person you ask it from and not the need. This is what I've learned. Acceptance will liberate you from trying to accommodate what you no longer can. Because sometimes you've tried and you've tried and you've tried and you say, oh my gosh, I can't with that employee anymore. I just need to accept that this employee is never going to give me what I want in my business. I can't in this friendship anymore, and I just need to accept that this friend is not going to give me what I want and I need. I can't with this business partnership anymore. I just need to accept that this business partner is not going to give me what I want and I need. The Bible talks about not just looking on your own interest, but also on the interest of the other person. And sometimes it does get to that point where you're like, I don't think this is working and I don't think this partnership should continue. You are an asset with the right attitude who is available and able, but not available or able for that. And that wouldn't work. If you are an asset with the right attitude who is available and able, but you choose not to be available, it won't work. Because you have all four of the criteria of the framework, right? Asset, attitude, availability, and ability. But you decide you will be too busy, which means you're not available. And that's why I constantly say never marry potential. Make sure you marry patterns. Because when someone shows you who they are, believe them. You believe them. You don't need to see that much, You know why we keep second guessing and piggybacking and just saying, let me pedaling back. You know why we keep doing that? Because we don't want to admit what we've seen in people. And sometimes We don't even want to admit what we've seen in ourselves. And if, like me, you recognize today, I'm not as available to people as I'd like to be, after the awareness, what now? After the awareness, what now? The awareness is supposed to lead to what? Change. An adjustment has to take place. So ask yourself, if I want people to be available to me, am I available to them? Am I really showing up in my relationships? Am I really showing up as a leader in this business? Am I really showing up as a leader in this home? Because you can't ask for what you aren't sowing seed for. A lazy man would do nothing. He wouldn't plow in the time to sow and expect to reap a harvest. It won't work. So if you think you're going to reap the harvest of available employees and available helpers and you are an unavailable person, it won't work. And I say this as somebody who was sowing unavailability. But by God's grace and mercy, I have people who are so available to me now that if I call them or I text them, they'll come running. They'll come running. Everybody is busy. You're not the only one, and you will also meet busy people. But let me tell you something. There are people out there who will drop what they're doing to find you. And when you find those people, by God's grace, you hold on to them. When you find those people, you treat them well. And when you find those people, remember, they must also be an asset with the right attitude, because availability isn't all you need to make good relationships work. So I hope this blessed you. It was short and I hope it was sweet. And you recognize that you need to be what you're asking for, which is available. Until next time, and we do the fourth part of the framework, take good care of yourself.